Magandang hapon. I'd like to do a sound check first. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Today's live is going to be about the basics of Philhealth lang. Kasi nagkaroon ng hearing kaninang umaga tungkol dito well, among other things, a lot of things about Philhealth. And itong controversy na ito ay nabigyan ng pansin dahil dun sa increase ng ating payment ng premiums dito. So, unang-una, what is Philhealth? Philhealth is a form of insurance. It is called health insurance. Ibig sabihin, nagbibigay ng kontribusyon ang mga tao para pag kailangan na nila ang healthcare, merong magbabayad para dito. Parang nag-iimpok lang tayo. But that's not the end all of it. Maraming nagko-contribute. This is how it works, no? Para maging successful ang isang form of insurance, kailangan marami o malaki ang base ng contributions. Yung contributions na yon, hindi sapat yan. Halimbawa, let's say I pay 3,000 pesos a year for several years. Kahit mag-ipon ako 3,000 pesos, let's say for 10 years, that's only 300,000 pesos. Kung kunwari nagkaroon ako ng sakit, let's say it's COVID, that kind of illness will require me to pay 700,000 minimum. So, ibig sabihin, kahit ipunin ko on my own yung 300,000 na yan, hindi yan magiging sapat. Pero, kapag maraming nagko-contribute, merong isang katawan o organisasyon, ililikumin nila lahat ng mga contribution na yan at for the most part, i-invest yan para lalong lumaki. Sa gayon, lahat ng mga individual contributors, lumalaki din yung pondo na nakalaan para sa kanila. Yung collectivity nito, this is what makes it stronger. Therefore, the bigger the base, the stronger or the more efficient and the more comprehensive the coverage of the health insurance is going to be. Okay? So, yun po yung basics of how this is going to work. Ngayon, in addition to providing for healthcare insurance, ang nangyari is yung ating Philhealth lumaki at naging universal healthcare. So, nagkaroon tayo ng Universal Healthcare Act at in-expand yung coverage na yon so that everybody or every Filipino will have some kind of healthcare. Ang sinasabi natin dito is some kind of healthcare kasi merong basic na package na binibigay dun sa mga hindi nakakapag-contribute. Parang indirect ang contribution nila. Halimbawa, yung mga nasa 4Ps. Kahit wala silang binabayad, target beneficiaries pa rin sila ng Philhealth, but they only get the very basic healthcare. Hindi pa ako updated dun sa mga latest packages, gayon pa man, hindi pa rin malaki ang coverage nila. For those who are direct contributors, meron silang dependents, meron silang, and there is a separate coverage for those na nagbibigay. Okay. Therefore, so what are we trying to say here? Sorry, nag-ring yung alarm ko. We need a large pool of contributors so that everybody is covered. Okay, not just ourselves, hindi lang po yung mga nagko-contribute, kundi pati yung mga hindi kaagad or indirectly pa lang nagko-contribute. Ibig sabihin nito, talagang kasama dito sa universal healthcare na nagbabayad din tayo para dun sa mga hindi nakakapag-contribute. Again, huwag kayo magagalit. Hindi dahil sa pampered class yun, or hindi dahil sa hindi natin sila ini-encourage na magtrabaho. Ang punto ng batas dito is for those who are capable, those who are able-bodied, will assist those who are not. So, halimbawa, hindi makatrabaho kasi handicap or matatanda na, retiree ka na, hindi ka na kayang makapag-trabaho and therefore make a contribution, tutulungan ka naman ng mga tao na may kaya. That is the nature of socialized insurance. So, yung mga may kaya, magbibigay, yung mga hindi kaya magbibigay, makakatanggap. Pero hindi magiging pantay yung matatanggap. So yung ating mga 4Ps, basic package, mga contributors have a larger package. That's how it's supposed to work. Ngayon, ano yung mga issues dito? Apparently, nung napasa ang Universal Healthcare Act, hindi naging laganap yung impormasyon kung kaya't marami sa atin nabigla nung nakita natin yung mga increases. Bakit natin? Kasi hindi lang po OFWs ang merong increases. Every person who is capable of working or who is working, actually earning income, ay magiging mandatory contributor. Yun po ang nakalagay sa Universal Healthcare Act. Anong penalty pag hindi ka nagbigay? Well, among others, para dun sa who are here dito sa Pilipinas, when it comes the time na mag-avail ka dun sa Universal Healthcare Act or dun sa iyong insurance, like let's say you have to go to the hospital, na aksidente kayo, if you're going to avail of your insurance, your healthcare coverage, hindi ka makaka-avail until punuin mo yung contributions mo plus interest. Okay? Nandun po sa batas yung pagdagdag, pagpataw ng interest for late payments. Ngayon, marami sa atin posibleng nagagalit dito sa interest na to. Gayon pa man, i-explain ko, lahat po ng kinds of insurance, may penalty po talaga for late payments. Okay? Pero, by the way, hindi lang po kasi yung nagbabayad ang contributor dito sa pondo ng Philhealth, para maging mas malaki, meron ding mandatory contribution na nanggagaling sa gobyerno at pinapataw ito dun sa tinatawag natin na sin taxes. Okay. Dahil sa sin taxes, nakakakolekta ang gobyerno at ito ay dinadagdag dun sa pondo plus yung contributions ng ating mga workers. All workers, hindi lang po OFWs. Okay, so, ano na ngayon yung mga issues? Tingnan ko yung mga questions niyo. Wag po natin samahan muna ng galit kasi mahirap mag-explain kung emotional tayo. First of all, hindi lang po OFWs ang kumakarga ng increase. At hindi lang po, hindi rin po masasabi na para siyang class legislation. Ganito po kasi yon. Para makaklaim na dehado ang isang klase ng tao, kailangan masabi natin na yung batas is discriminating against a particular class. So, ang tinatawag natin dito sa batas ay class legislation because it works for or exclusively benefits a single class or exclusively discriminates against a particular class. In this case, umaangal ang mga OFWs natin kasi ang sinasabi is masyadong malaki ginagawang gatasan yung ating OFWs. I'm not sure I agree with that completely. Pero may valid points ang binibring up ng ating OFWs. However, we also have to balance it with the fact that everybody who is working will pay the same rates. Everybody who is working, kapag na-late yung payments, I will also be subject to penalties dun sa kanilang late payments. Okay? Yung mga OFWs, ang difference nila is, yung difference is, one, ang dali kolektahin. Kasi pag umuwi or aalis, then pwedeng gawing requirement na full up paid for the duration, let's say, of, basta for a particular duration, kailangan bayad na, let's say 1 year. Kukolektahin yan, tapos pwedeng i-withhold yung OEC, according to the rules, kapag hindi pa nagbabayad, which effectively means hindi makakaalis yung OFW. Walang corresponding withholding, walang corresponding rule para dun sa mga nandito lang. Well, because wala naman silang mahuhold dahil hindi kami paalis. At kung paalis kami, usually it's just as tourists, which means hindi yon magiging basis, walang gatekeeper para sa amin. Gayun pa man, pag nag-avail kami, Because talagang mag-a-avail kami at one point or another, whether it is for ourselves or for our dependents or for when we retire, kailangan isisingil na sa atin yung mga delayed payments, yung mga mandatory contributions na hindi nabigay, plus interest compounded yearly. Anong ibig sabihin ng compounded yearly? Kung kunwari, hindi ako nagbayad for 1 year, merong interest yan. I'm not sure what the interest rates are. Pero it's similar to taxation. So, meron kang interest for the year. So, year 1, let's say you owe 1,000 pesos. Tapos, ang interest mo is 100 pesos. Year 1, you have to pay your premium, which is 1,000 pesos, plus 100 pesos. Year 2, since it is 10%, ang iyong ang iyong interest, ang 10% mo by the second year will be computed at 1,100 pesos. That's why it's compounded. So, year 1, 1,000 is your premium and then 100 is your interest. In year 2, 2,000 na yung premium mo, pero i-compute yun at 1,000 for the year plus 1,100. Tapos, that makes it 2,100, and therefore your interest is now 2,210 pesos. Okay? And then next year, lalaki yan. So, year 3, if hindi na naman nagbayad, premiums 2,000 plus for that year, 3,000 na yung premiums na hindi binabayad. So, yung plus the 100 of the first year, plus the 210 of the second year, plus the third year, you will now owe i-compound yun. So, ang computation will now be based on the 3,000 plus, mina na yung math, base, and then the 10% will be computed based on the new amount. Yan ang ibig sabihin ng compounded, which means malaki at lumalaki ng lumalaki habang tumatagal. Okay? Mabigat. If ever we're going to need it, then maglalabas kami ng pera para sa Philhealth, and then yung balanse pa na hindi mako-cover ng Philhealth, maglalabas din kami for that. Okay? Ngayon, for OFWs, posibleng lumaki din kung kunwari abroad sila, tapos hindi sila nakaremit ng payment for their Philhealth, and it compounds after so many years, hindi na naman makakapag-travel until full up yung payment. Pag nahirapan magbayad, then mag-iintay because you don't get your OEC without full payment of your premiums. Tapos, kung delayed, plus interest. So, nakakagulat rin. Kasi kahit ako, hindi ko alam nung pinasa yung Universal Healthcare Act na ito ay ibabase doon sa iyong income. Okay? And how do you prove income? You prove it by showing either, pag OFWs, your contract of employment, which is supposed to reflect how much you're going to get. Pag kami dito, then we have to show our income tax returns para mapakita both na nagbabayad kami ng income tax, plus to show just how much income we're paying, at doon ibabase yung aming contributions, mandatory contributions. Ngayon, sinasabi ng mga OFWs na wala silang kahati when it comes to them. Kasi dito, kung employed ka, take note of the term, kung employed ka, then hati. The employer pays 50% and the employee pays 50%. Pero that's not exactly true na may kahati yung employee. Because one way or another, the employer will pass this on to the employee. Because to help, instead of bearing the burden, one way or another, malilipat yan dun sa employee, whether it is in terms of eventual salary deduction, yun yung diretsahan, or yung delay sa inyong pagpopromote, kasi babawiin pa ng employer yung binabayad niya dun sa mandatory contributions ng employees. But those are only for employees. For the rest of us who are self-employed, or because we own businesses or we practice our professions, then ang binabayad namin, pareho din. Wala rin kaming kahati sa aming mandatory contributions, katulad din ng mga OFWs. Nakikita natin na hindi singled out ang OFWs except when it comes to the withholding of the OEC, which means effectively that Philhealth can keep you from traveling if you are not fully paid dun sa mandatory contributions ninyo. Paano pa nadidihado ang OFWs? Well, most of them, because they will be abroad, will not be able to take advantage of the benefits of Philhealth unless it is their dependents who have that benefit, who napapasa sa mga dependents. So kung may mga children below 21, I think na pwedeng, I'm not sure I have to check on this. Sa income tax natin dati kasi, maaaring i-declare ang senior citizen parents if they are dependent on you. So I have to check kung maaaring ikarga as a dependent ang seniors. If not, then it's only children below 21 at saka yung spouse. Okay? But you are covered until your retirement. According to Philhealth, OFWs will also benefit if they come here to retire. So kung hindi sila magre-retire dito, then yun nga, agree na magiging dehado sila. The reason you're going to be covered, even if you do not intend to return home, is because you might be misdeclaring it. So sinasabi ng Philhealth, presumed lahat na uuwi dito and therefore beneficiary sila when they are retired and already back in the Philippines. So hindi ibig sabihin daw na hindi kayo magbe-benefit kasi pagka-retire ninyo, that's when you will be able to reap the benefits of this insurance. If you don't come home, well, then dapat, ang tingin ko dyan there should be a system where you can get some kind of refund. Pero wala po akong nakikitang ganun pa so far. So, bakit ngayon, ang sabi ng presidente is isususpende ang payments for OFWs, yung increased payments for OFWs, which means ang babayaran lang is the old rate, which is something like 2,300 or 2,500. So, and then makakaalis na sila. Or, sinasabi ng presidente, maging voluntary na lang ang contributions to universal health care. Because the directive of the president was primarily verbal, medyo mahirap i-decipher. So, ang sinasabi ng Philhealth, ayon dun sa direktiba ng Pangulo, kailangan isuspindi muna ang payments for OFWs except for those who are voluntary. Ayon kay Philhealth President Ricardo Morales, there are about 300,000 OFWs who are voluntarily paying for their Philhealth. I'm not sure they can pay, pagka yung voluntary payments, pwedeng yung old rate lang will constitute the down payment, tapos next year na magbabayad ng balanse without incurring any interest. Bakit next year? Kasi dinidefer ng Philhealth in case maipasa na yung batas before next year. Pag naipasa yung batas, and the law we're talking about is the law that will rationalize itong payment ng ating mga OFWs dito sa mandatory contributions for Philhealth. Ngayon, problema nito is, what if the OFW does not volunteer payment but comes home to retire dito sa Pilipinas? Wala pa rin pong mechanism for that. Magiging covered ba yung retiree? Or kailangan maging dependent siya ng anak niya who will then in turn be the new contributor to Philhealth. 2 seconds, magsasaksak lang ako. So yan, hindi pa yun malinaw yung part na yun. So, ngayon, what are the valid issues that are included in this entire discussion? Corruption in Philhealth is one, and it's a valid it is a valid argument. It's not an argument to exempt anybody from payment, ha? Hindi ibig sabihin na totoong may kurakot sa Philhealth ay hindi na excuse na yan para hindi tayo magbayad. The only way na hindi tayo mare-require talaga magbayad is kung magbago yung batas. Kasi nandun yun, nakasaad sa Universal Healthcare Act na kailangan lahat ng direct contributors ay kailangan magbayad. Fortunately, wala naman pong penalty like imprisonment, etc. because this nga is supposed to be a form of socialized insurance para maaari tayong, it's to benefit everybody. By the way, bakit may universal healthcare? Well, it benefits not just the poorest of the poor or the contributors. The idea kasi is that healthcare is supposed to be a right. Hindi kasi tayo katulad ng US na healthcare is something that you have to pay for and that the government should not concern itself with. In Europe and in most progressive countries, since identified na karapatan ang kalusugan, because it relates to the right to life, di ba? Kung wala tayong right to healthcare, it means na kaya tayong patayin ng Estado even if it is indirectly. In other words, kung hindi tayo tutulungan dito sa healthcare ng ating Estado, it's almost the same as killing those who are incapable of paying for their own healthcare. Next, what else? Universal healthcare allows the population to become, healthier. And the healthier population is a benefit by itself. Halimbawa, ito, COVID. The more people who are healthy and the more people who we can address their disease, particularly infectious diseases, it means less and less ang mahahawa and the greater part of the population will be healthy and safe. Okay? So, yun yung tinatawag natin na goal ng ating batas sa universal healthcare. A healthy population is good for everybody. And we know that this is a need for us. Di ba kayo nakakakilala ng mga pamilya na nawa-wipe out dahil nagkasakit ang isang family member? We know of yung mga stories, lalong-lalo na yung mga mahihirap, magkakasakit yung isang family member, nagkakautang-utang sila kapag nagkasakit yon. And minsan, nagkasakit na matay, uutang ka pa uli pang palibing. So, the family is left with a debt that they have to continue paying kahit na wala na yung family member na yon. And in many cases, it takes about a generation to get out of debt. Which means, tumitigil mag-aral yung mga bata para makapagtrabaho, para makapakain ng sarili nila, and all that. And it creates what we call a cycle of poverty. Nagiging mas pahirap ng pamilya. And when it happens again, na merong magkasakit, hindi na lalong makakaahon forever yung pamilya or for a longer period of time. In other words, it's like a condemnation of that family to forever be in poverty if they cannot afford healthcare or if healthcare is not affordable. Okay? Ang daming nega ha dun sa comments. Alam kong galit kayo. Pero first, we have to understand that there is a common good para dito sa healthcare. That's why hindi kami tumatalon onto the bandwagon and saying abolish Philhealth and all of that. And definitely, because corruption is an issue, there are two forms here. There's corruption in the operational costs, and there is corruption within the costs that are the funds that are set aside para sagutin yung ating mga healthcare needs. Yung pondo na yon, nakahiwalay yan, ito yung dapat ini-invest. Okay? The first problem that we see with Philhealth, and we're going now into the problems, ang una natin nakikitang problema pagdating dito sa Philhealth ay walang transparency doon sa pag-invest nila. Saan po ba nilalagay ng ating mga fund managers yung pera para lumago ito? At bakit sinasabi nila sa atin na dahil daw sa COVID hanggang 2020 na lang ang pondo? What happened? So we need to demand a public accounting. At yun yung purpose kung bakit both the Senate and the House held their hearings. Problema nga lang dito sa Senado, masyado silang nadidistract dito sa sa paghahanap ng kung merong may kasalanan. So ang nangyayari is, kakahanap ng may kasalanan, hindi lumalabas yung mga mahahalagang impormasyon katulad ng, teka, saan yung nilagay yung pera? Nasaan yung investment? Saan, ano yung naging resulta ng mga investments na yon? Saan pag ginamit yung pondo na yon? Bakit ganyan lumiliit? Ano pang corruption dyan? Well, the lack of transparency, first, doon sa investment, so hindi natin alam saan nila nilagay para lumago yan. Pangalawa, yung pag-identify ng mga hospital beneficiaries. Halimbawa, Makati Med ay nagsasabi na kalahating bilyon na yata ang utang ng Philhealth sa kanila. St. Luke's, ganun din, parang 300 milyon na halos ang nagiging utang, ang so far running na utang ng Philhealth. Bakit hindi nagbabayad ang Philhealth sa mga private hospitals? Pero may naririnig tayong mga ospital or mga maternity clinics na binagsakan nila ng pondo nitong panahon ng COVID, pero isa lang ang pasyente ng COVID or walang COVID patient at all. So, anong nangyari doon? Anong problema? So, isa pa yon na hindi naging maliwanag. Ano pa? May dating mga investigasyon na bayad ng bayad ang Philhealth dito sa mga dialysis centers na it turns out yung isang dialysis center na ang bilis-bilis na nababayaran ay inaanak ni Secretary of Health Francisco Duque. Yes, valid itong mga to. We have to get to the bottom of this and heads have to roll. Ngayon, that doesn't mean that we have to stop being contributors. As a matter of fact, dahil contributors tayo, may right tayo mag-demand both ng transparency at makulong, makonvict itong mga taong to. Ako nga, gusto ko balik death penalty dahil magiging plunder na ito eh. So, grabe ang nagiging corruption pagdating dito sa payouts. Yung sinasabi earlier sa karambola is a good suggestion. Kasi, ang mga health insurance sa ibang bansa, this is how it works. Bayad ka ng health insurance doon sa insurance company at yung company yon may identified na clinics, may identified na doctors. Kapag kailangan mo na yung healthcare, sila yung mga approved doctors, magsasubmit ka lang, papakita mo lang yung health card mo at iaawas na nila yung services base dun sa entitlements mo na package. So, halimbawa, dati, merong yung isa kong anak, had health coverage of up to 100,000 per year, kasama yung mga dependents niya. So, maaari siya pagpupunta, kunwari, na ospital ako, punta lang ako dun sa ospital, ipipresent ko yung dependents card kasi bayad na yung premiums ng aking anak and I am a dependent. So, yan. Yan yung, that's how it's, you identify the doctors, you identify the hospitals, you identify the coverage. Eh di malinaw lahat, di tayo nag-e-expect na pupunta ka doon, magpupresent ka ng Philhealth, tapos sasabihin, yung coverage nito, yung lang, yung lab test lang or something like that. Yung mga tipong 100,000 na yung bill mo, tapos sasabihan ka ng Philhealth na, sorry, ang coverage ninyo 5,000 pesos lang. Eh, siguro kung walang heads na magro-roll dahil hindi pa na-convict ng ombudsman, gusto mo, ikaw na magpapalakol doon. Kasi, yun na nga. So, that is another lack of transparency. Hindi maliliwanag yung ating mga packages at kung ano yung mga coverage. Sometimes, it's because we don't read yung nasa Philhealth. Pero there are other times, kasi ako, nagbabasa naman ako, nagugulat pa rin ako, bakit ito hindi covered? Okay. Sige, I'll be checking your comments and your questions in a little while. Tapusin lang natin itong mahaba akong sermon. Okay. Ano pa? Saan pa nagkakaproblema? Well, dun sa identification ng beneficiaries. Especially, hindi sa contributors, kasi madali natin patunayan na beneficiary tayo. Dun sa 4Ps. Sino ang covered? Of course, ang 4Ps may means of identification sila. May mga cards din sila. Pero, ilan ba ang 4Ps? And, lahat ba talaga ng mahihirap ay nako-cover nito? Ako kasi, if I am paying premiums and I am paying a lot of premiums, and sige, tulong na rin sa aking mga kababayan na mako-cover yung ibang nasa 4Ps, how many exactly ang nakakapag-avail nito? Baka naman, pati yung binayaran namin para makatulong sa aming kababayan, ay binabarat nyo din. 'Di ba? Kaya ako nagbabayad para hindi masyadong magkakasakit yung aking mga kababayan. Pero kung nagkakasakit pa rin sila dahil binabarat ninyo, what are you doing with our contributions? Again, this is another valid question. Diba? So, tama. Galit ang mga OFWs. Hell yeah! Dapat talaga magalit kayo. But not just because you feel you're singled out, but because if you're going to pay na rin lang, then we demand a transparency, we demand accuracy in your packages, and we demand better service. Diba? If we're going to have to pay, abay, serbisyuhan nyo naman kami. Hindi yung naririnig namin, puro skandalo ang lumalabas sa ahensya ninyo. Okay? Tinatanong ngayon, okay, questions na. Tinatanong ni Tito Gonzaga, how come the primary authors of the UHC law did not check the defects of its IRR? Actually, they should have. Kasi sinasubmit naman yung IRR sa kanila at pinapublish ito. As a matter of fact, I just checked yung IRR ng Universal Healthcare Act is published in the official gazette. Google lang po yan. So, imposible naman na Google lang hindi titingin yung ating mga masusugid na kongresista at saka mga senador. Okay? So, tapos, iyan, today, makakarinig na naman tayo ng scandal after scandal. So, tama kayo, dito na pumapasok yung loss of trust in institutions. Kasi, in every case, we trust our government authorities, our institutions, to do their job. We presume that they're doing their job. Kaya nga po, meron silang benefit of the doubt because there is what we call a presumption of regularity. However, kapag maliwanag na it is not working, there are two things that should have come into action. Number one, yung tinatawag natin na oversight ng Kongreso at Senado, ng legislature. Yung mga mambabatas natin, dapat binabantayan nila kung paano ina-apply yung batas. Kung hindi ito na-apply ng ayos, then kailangan i-review yung batas kung ano ang kailangan baguhin. Or i-review yung kanilang implementing rules, at tama po yung nag-comment, para makita kung ina-apply ng tama at totoo at nang aayon sa batas yung batas na ito. Diba? If you adhere to the law. So, posible yung mga kongresista natin at mga senador medyo nalingat dahil may oversight functions naman sila dito. Ano yung pangalawa? Well, yung mga information agencies natin. Ginagawa yung batas in full view of the public. Nag-public hearings yan. Kaya nga lumabas yung tungkol dito sa sa dialysis center ng inaanak ni Francisco Duque, di ba? Dahil nag-continuous hearings ang ating Senado at ang ating Kongreso para maipasa ang Universal Healthcare Act. Bakit? Naghihiring pa lang, alam na nilang may problema, itinuloy pa rin yung batas. Bukod pa niyan, itinuloy pa rin at these outrageous rates. Hindi ba nila naiintindihan yung magiging epekto nito sa OFWs? Hindi ba nila nakita o naramdaman na from 2,000 pesos, 2,500 or 2,300 pesos, posibleng, ang smallest na magiging increase niyan will be something like 3,600 pesos in the first year. Tapos pataas ng pataas until it is 3% of income. Medyo, 3% in income? That's what I spend for, let's say. Ibig sabihin, mababawasan na yung budget ko for food and for other things. Yes, supposedly, it will go into healthcare, pero kailan ko magagamit yan? Hindi rin maliwanag. Kasama ba check-ups dyan? Kasama ba yung pagpunta ng mga anak ko to the pediatrician? Kasama ba dyan yung etc. Again, the lack of transparency on what this is going to be covering. Ito sabi ni Ma'am Jane Harba de Leon. Tulad po namin, family status po kami dito sa Qatar. May health card po kami dito. Ang tanong ko po kung mandatory kaming magbabayad ng Philhealth sa Pinas, sino po ang gagamit? Meron po kaming anak na nasa Pinas, pero hindi na po namin siya dependent. Nako, normal ito. Dapat po silang ikuha namin ng PhilHealth dahil hindi na namin sila masasakop. Agree? Kaya po ayaw ko pong maging mandatory ang payment ng OFWs. Ganito po yon. Maaari nating gawing mandatory pero subject to certain exceptions. Halimbawa kayo, full family, wala naman kayo dito. Pero kasi kung uuwi kayo, then you will be availing of that. Kung maaari lang, kung meron kasi tayong magandang database, at ito yung sinasabi ni President Ricardo Morales, kung meron tayong magandang database, maaari rin nating ilagay doon kung sino yung hindi na maaaring i-cover ng Universal Healthcare Act. However, the problem is, it's called a Universal Healthcare Act for a reason. It's supposed to cover everybody. No exceptions. So, pagka umuwi kayo dito para mag-retire or senior citizen na kayo, mandatory ang coverage ninyo. Wala na kayong babayaran, covered na kayo. So, hindi ba unfair yon kung uuwi kayo dito para mag-retire, covered kayo ng Philhealth, pero wala kayong contribution? Yes, yung 4Ps problema talaga yan. Kasi how do we explain now? Yung 4Ps nga, walang contribution, pero may mandatory coverage sila. Ang coverage nila will be smaller, mas malaki po ang coverage ng ating retirees. Okay? Kasi the presumption is, meron silang contributions. So, ang tingin ko, maaayos naman po yan. So, those without contributions, pwedeng i-classify under 4Ps. Diba? Yung tao, pwedeng individual under 4Ps, you'll be covered only by a very basic package. But that also means that somebody else will bear the burden of your cost. That means the rest of us will be paying for you. I hope you also understand that. Ngayon, if you're not coming home, problema, di ba? No problem. And yes, I agree na dapat yung anak niyo na lang dito ang magkaroon ng sarili niyang PhilHealth at hindi na po kayo. So I agree na in instances like that, dapat may exemption, pero kung i-exempt kayo, pagka uwi ninyo dito, very basic lang yung magiging mandatory coverage ninyo sa Universal Healthcare Act. Unfortunately, I'm not sure kung naging ganyan po yung rules. Hindi po ganun ka-dynamic yung rules. So maybe and hopefully mako-consider ito ng Kongreso. Okay. So, ano pa? Hindi tignan ko. Maganda yung mga comments niyo. Sabi ni Bert Gaddy, bakit po hindi na lang baguhin ang sistema ng PhilHealth? Nagaya po ng sinasabi ni Boss Conrad. Yung sistema po, kasi ang pangkalahatan ng country, kahit hindi naman kaya ng ibang Pilipino, it's US-style contributions. Well, ang problema kasi nga sa US-style, hindi, ang sinasabi ni Boss Conrad is, nagko-contribute ka, tapos may identified na healthcare givers, mga ganun, maayos yon. And it will be according to your contribution. The problem nga is, we have universal healthcare kasi nga, the general population is what we're going for. We want everybody to be healthy, to be covered by healthcare because a healthy population is good for everybody. Okay? Nababreak yung cycle of poverty kapag ganon. Hindi nalululong sa utang ang isang pamilya and there's a chance that they can break out of that cycle. The less poor people there are, ang daming benefits for the rest of us. Lower crime rates, better services, more taxes, better governance, etc. Binabalanse natin, which doesn't mean to say na hindi ko nararamdaman yung inis ng OFWs. Believe me, ramdam na ramdam ko. Kasi, later on, magiging base sa 3% ng income ko yung magiging contributions sa PhilHealth. Di ba? Lucky. And how much is going to be covered? Baka naman pag-uugod-ugod na ako and then I will find out na lang na ang laki-laki ng binayad ko tapos ang i-cover mo lang sa akin lab fees. Magkakaanuhan tayo talaga, magkakabarilan tayo kung ganyan. Ngayon, I also want to take this opportunity kasi maraming nire-report na fake news na yung mga nagsasabi tungkol dun sa how many 1.7 billion di umano ni Senator Risa Hontiveros. According to her and according to all the fact checkers on Facebook and on Twitter, hindi daw ito totoo. At nire-report na fake news lahat po ng nagsasabi nun. So, mag-iingat po muna tayo. What I'm going to do, along with my Karambola co-hosts, is babalikan namin yung mga controversies ni Senator Risa para kung sakasakaling pag-uusapan yung ganong klaseng kontrobersya, then accurate tayo sa facts at hindi tayo mare-report as fake news. So, ingat-ingat lang po dun sa pagre-repost ng mga ganon kasi si Madam Risa has been on the warpath and has been threatening to report to the NBI several people already na nasa Twitter tsaka sa Facebook supposedly for posting fake news. So, ingat-ingat lang din po tayo because ako, personally, I don't want anyone's account to get taken down over something like that. Diba? Sabi ni Grace Canellos, paano kung ang mga citizen sa US pero uuwi sa Pinas kapag mag-retire na? Kailangan bang bumili ng Philhealth o pag-uwi na ng Pinas? You're considered a mandatory contributor kapag kayo ay dual citizen. Yes, yearly. Kaya kasi nga, precisely for that reason, dahil magre-retire kayo dito, then you will be covered by you're mandatorily covered by PhilHealth. So, kung wala po kayong contributions at wala pa po kasing mechanism for a very basic coverage ng healthcare, then baka ipabayad sa inyo. Better to get PhilHealth kung desidido na kayo na dito po kayo magre-retire. Under the current law, bago pa kasi yung batas kasi sinabi na nga ni Congressman Mike Defensor that they are going to propose amendments to the Universal Healthcare Act. Ito yung cut-off date na iniisip natin. If by next year wala pang napapasa sa bagong na amendment sa batas, then I suggest you get PhilHealth because we have to resign ourselves that the law might not be changed in time bago sa next elections. May time pa po ngayon. Sabi ni Florence, sana mabuo na yung OFW department ay doon na bubuo ng insurance naming OFWs na meron kaming kasiguruhan pag-retire namin. Hindi po kasi kailangan ihiwalay kayo. Yun nga po kasi, the insurance works on a larger base. In other words, the larger the base of contributors, the better it is for you. Kung ihihiwalay natin yung sa OFWs, you will get less coverage. Kesya doon yung sa malaki, yung marami yung contributors. But I agree on the Department of OFW kasi nga, naaawa ako sa mga OFWs, meron silang DOLE, meron silang DFA, may kung anik-anik pa. So, ang daming red tape. So, I agree na dapat isang department na lang for all OFW concerns. Tapos, yung remittances doon can also be kept track by that department. Kasi halimbawa, kunwari, yung mga government employees, they can keep track easily, nandito sila, for those who are, whose remittances are made, whose contributions are made by their employers, you can also check that easily kasi nandito kayo sa Pilipinas. Pero when you're abroad, dapat you have a department working to make sure that your contributions are remitted regularly. Sabi ni Deng Bautista, I'm a registered OFW but stopped paying my contribution for about 5 years and intended not to pay anymore since May. May sarili ng PhilHealth ang mga anak ko. So you mean if I go home for my retirement, I have to pay all the missing years with the updated rules computations, which is really huge. That's a distinct possibility, opo. That's possible. Because that's what it says. So, that's why nga iniintay ko na ma-amend yan. Huwag pong mag-alala, napansin po ni Congressman Mike Defensor yan na hindi makakauwi ang OFW unless mabayaran yung back contributions plus interest. Ito magandang tanong to. Nasa na, nawala yun. Tinatanong ni Nandi Tinaco, bakit hindi pa nalinis ni General Morales ang PhilHealth na mag 5 years na in service si President Digong? General Morales was appointed only last year. Parang 13 months pa lang siya dito sa PhilHealth. Before that, parang 2 na rin yata yung nasibak before him. So, ang constant lang talaga dyan sa PhilHealth si Secretary Duque. I think that says something. Ngayon, kahit yung mga kongresista kanina dun sa hearing ay sinasabi, he hasn't had that much time to actually be able to attend to all of the issues in Philhealth. At nagsabi na rin ang presidente, wala pa siyang nakikitang ebidensya to implicate General Morales. Gayunpaman, ito yung sitwasyon at in-explain kaninang umaga sa karambola ni Kong Jonat na if yung head lang ang pinapalitan natin, andyan pa rin yung mga kurakot. Kasi really, how does corruption occur? Kaya nilang you remember si Nick Fildon, nasa customs or nasa Bucor, and hindi naman nabago yung mga tao under him. So tumutuloy-tuloy pa rin yung mga tao doon or trying to insist on their old ways kahit nagbago yung head. So nagkakaroon ng clash. So ito pa ang problema. Kunwari, may order o sibakin na lahat yan. Hindi mo basta-basta masisibak yung mga may tenure dahil ayon dun sa Civil Service Act, kung meron kunwari mga seso, hindi basta yan pwedeng sibakin. Kailangan may hearing, may cause, etc. Dapat hinihingan sila daw ng what about yung sinabi ng presidente, kailangan mag-tender ng courtesy resignation yung iba. Papasok yung isang head, tapos patatanggal mo yung mga luma, then you will be flying blind. At yun yung sinasabi ni General Morales. Ang sabi niya is, hindi na niya kayang tanggalin lahat ng sabay-sabay kasi yung mga marunong magpatakbo ng ahensya, who are also the people that we have to doubt their integrities, ay, you're caught between a rock and a hard place. The people who know how to run the agency are the very same people that you're supposed to be getting rid of. So, pag tinanggal mo yan, even you will not know how to run the agency. You need to rely on people who are there. So, yun yung tinatawag natin na moral dilemma ni General Morales. Kaya pansin nyo, nobody, especially sa Congress at saka sa Malacanang, walang mabilis na nagkokondena sa kanya kasi alam nila ang hirap. Lalo-lalo na if all the people under you keep lying to you and you have to rely on them dahil hindi mo paggamay yung ahensya mo, then, this is the recipe for disaster and that is how corruption continues to work. Ang tama na yung ginawa ni Presidente Duterte, humingi siya ng courtesy resignations. But with General Morales unable to put in his own people or people who are already knowledgeable at walang bahid ng corruption, that's a different thing altogether. How to find those people? Diba? Ganong kalalim ba ang bangko na paghuhugutan ni General Morales? How many people have graduated with a degree in actuarial science? Who are accountants, who are lawyers? Ilan lang yon. And minsan, pag pinasok mo pa sa ahensya na kurakot, ay natututo rin na maging kurakot. So, yun yung natin, no? Yun yung dilema natin. Kaya, again, I will reiterate, hindi po mabilis kinondena ng Kongreso. In fact, hindi nila kinokondena si General Morales. Hindi rin kinokondena o nilalaglag ng Malacanang because they know that it's hard. Hi. I have a dog. Okay. Lisa, can you get Yoshi?
No. Yoshi!
Bye, Yoshi. Sorry. May dog na naman. Okay. So, ito. Sabi ni Mark Martella, sana po kayo po ang 100 para malusaw yung 3% monthly rates para sa aming OFWs. Ang laki ng 3%. Pwede naman pong taasan ng contribution natin but not on a monthly basis. Agree? Pwede yan yearly basis. Double agree? Kasi gano'n naman normally Yearly basis, hindi yung monthly. Kasi pwede naman quarterly payments or yearly payments. Pero dapat isang amount lang yan. So, tapos you have the option to pay yearly. Tapos pwede naman nilang incremental increases para hindi tayo nabibigla. Kunwari, this year, last year 2,300. O sige, this year, for the entire year, 3,000. Di pa masakit sa atin yan. Yearly na yan Hindi yung 3,000 monthly. Kung galing ka sa 2,300 or 2,500, tapos the next year, you're paying what? 24,000, 60,000? Holy cow! Sabi ni Heads Reyes Colon, marami na rin nainganyo sa bagong, na mag-dual citizen dahil sa bagong government sa Pinas. Tapos ngayon, yung PhilHealth nag-demand ng mandatory contributions of 3% at walang transparency. Wait ha, hindi po PhilHealth ang nag-demand niyan. Kongreso yung gumawa ng batas. Of course, hand in glove with the PhilHealth. PhilHealth naman siguro yung nagpayo sa kanila dito sa rates na to. But it's not this PhilHealth. Tandaan niyo, wala pa si General Morales niyan, yung naipasa yung batas. Not protecting him, just real talk lang talaga. Pero, tama kayo, ang bilis ng tinaas, nakakadismaya, and hindi tayo prepared. Ako, definitely hindi ako prepared. Kasi, nung ginagawa at nung ipapasa yung batas, wala man lang nagsabi sa atin na, oy, yung yearly contribution ninyo, yung PhilHealth ninyo, dati 2,3, 2,5, 2,6, whatever lang yan. Ngayon, magiging 20,000 plus na in the first year alone, 40 in the year after that, and then 60 the year after that. Wait, what? Nobody told us. Diba? Natuwa, isa pa nga ako dun sa natuwa na, uy, may Universal Healthcare Act na. Yes, you have to have universal healthcare because health is a human right, medical services are human right, a healthy public is a healthy country. Tapos nakita ko, ang laki ng bibigay sa sakit. Ang laki ng contribution ko. Ay. Pero wag niyo naman sabihin, dear OFWs, wag niyo naman sabihin na kayo lang ang nahihirapan. Kami din, lalo na kaming mga self-employed. Magkakampi tayo, wag niyo kaming i-isolate. Ang swerte nga ninyo, kayo, sinuspindi na. Kami hindi. Pag hindi kami nagbayad on time ha, January kami dapat nagbabayad. Ay, may pataw na kami ng interest at ang laki kaya ng interest. Tapos, ito nga nagka-COVID, akala ko, sige, hindi ako makabayad, hindi mo na ako magbabayad ng interest dapat. Ay, pagpasok ng Hunyo, patak na naman yung interest. Ang sakit. Sa amin, we're experiencing it real time, yung sakit niyan. So, huwag niyo naman kaming i-marginalize. Nasasaktan din kami. Nagdadala din kami ng burden ng ng increased contributions. Pero kayo lang po yung suspended yung payments. Kaming mga self-employed, hindi. At pag hindi kami nagbayad on time, kami ngayon pa lang nagbabayad na ako ng interest. So, wag naman ganon. And remember, wala din kaming kahating employer. So, yung mga may professions, yung mga may negosyo, ang laki kaya. Lalo na yung mga may negosyo, i-compute mo pa ngayon dun sa income mo, kung ano yung income mo, at ano yung babayad mo, dahil 3%, after so many years, 3% na ng total income mo ang ibabayad mo para sa health insurance. Okay? Sabi ni Jerry Pepito Ponce, tanong lang po, nag-end contract na ako at nauwi na, covered pa ba yung pamilya ko ng UHC? Opo, i-activate nyo lang po kasi once you have become a contributor, forever ka na po, member you're already a beneficiary of the universal. Ayan, sorry na na-swipe ko, nagkamali ako. Yes, you'll still be a member. You're still a member of Philhealth kasi naging contributor po kayo. Don't worry about that. Pero sasabihin nyo lang, i-report nyo lang sa Philhealth, nag-end contract kayo and therefore wala kayong income. Pag walang income, then hindi po kayo required na magbayad pa na. You will be exempt from the payment of premiums kasi hindi na po kayo magiging patak doon sa mandatory contributor. Okay, dapat ha, kasi binabasa ko lang yung batas. But I will double check this with Philhealth. We will keep updating you at saka sasagot po, sisikapin po namin na magsasagot ng tanong both sa Karambola, sa Tambayan at saka dito sa Luminous tungkol sa Philhealth. Pero sasabihin ko na sa inyo ngayon pa lang ha, nakakabaliw yung batas nito. Kasi dalawa yan eh, yung Philhealth Act at saka yung Universal Healthcare Act. Tapos kailangan habol ng habol doon sa mga nilalabas na advisories at saka memoranda every so often na ini-issue ng Philhealth. Sabi ni R.V. Ali, para masawatan ni General Morales ang corruption sa Philhealth ay lifestyle check sa buong kawani nito. Sa ganyang paraan, sigurado ako malalaman ni General kung sinong corrupt doon sa ahensya na yan. Don't worry, kasi ginagawa na po ng PACC yan under Com Greco Belgica. Nag-iimbestiga na rin po ng mga opisyales ng Philhealth si Sir Greco. si Sir Grex. So, intay-intayin po natin yung magiging resulta ng investigasyon na yan. Sabi ni Deng Bautista, Diyos ko Lord, if I retire in the next 10 years and haven't paid for it for the last 5 years, agoy, 15 years times 20K, I have to pay to save 300K alone for Philhealth to be covered. Ang bigat. Totoo yan. Kaya ang gusto ko muna mangyari bago i-implement ito ay bigyan ng amnesty yung mga hindi pa nagbayad, hindi nakapagbayad. Let's say OFW ka, 5 taong ka, di ka pa umuwi dahil andan naman yung buong pamilya mo. Tapos uuwi ka, bubulagain ka ng, bayad ka muna ng ganito, 300,000 like you're saying. Tingin ko dapat may amnesty period muna. Di ba ganun dun sa income tax? Magde-declare ng amnesty para, sige, ayan ha, legal na kayo, nag-amnesty na, bayad lang kayo, wala nang interest, wala nang kahit anong ganyan. Okay na. Okay. Pero yung mga kunwari, 5 years kayo hindi nagbayad, tandaan nyo, yung rates ninyo are still the old rates. Hindi naman ipapataw yung bagong rates sa inyo. Tapos, kung noon walang interest payments, then yung 5 years na yun, wala po kayong interest. At least that's how I'm reading it, ha. Ngayon, yung interest po, mag-a-apply yon from the time pumatak yung Universal Healthcare Act and onwards. So, yung before the Universal Healthcare Act should not have interest unless may interest siya dun sa lumang Philhealth na law. I have to check that yet. Tapos, yung 5 years na yun na hindi kayo nagbayad will be at the old rates, at the rate for that year. Okay? Sabi ni Ma'am Ann Marquez, okay naman ang Philhealth at UHC na yan. Kaso, mas malala talagang korupsyon eh. Nakakaiyak na kahit ang sakit-sakit sa bulsa pagbabayad, tapos malalaman mo, winawaldas lang pala ng mga corrupt employees na andyan sa loob ng ahensya. Feel na feel ko kayo, madam, kasi masakit din sa yung increase sa contributions. Yung mo dati, pipitsugin sa akin, kaya yan, 2-4, sige, bayad, 2-4. Yung mga tipong, shucks, nagbayad na ba ako ng Philhealth this year? Sige, bayad na lang. But no. Ngayon, ibang level. Okay. Sabi ni Monina Moinks Doinog, salamat po sa mga sagot sa katanungan, pero being an OFW here at 3% ay hot topic sa amin ito at nakakaiyak dahil mabigat talaga 3%. Hindi pa po 3% ngayon ha. I think that's 3 years from now. Hindi pa po. Kaya nga, malaki yung chance na ma-amendahan yan. So, ito yung gusto natin itulak. So, one of these days, interviewin natin uli si Kong Mike Defensor. So, sasabihin natin kay Kong Mike, sana may amnesty period. Or, kung hindi, yung regular reading ng batas. So, kung hindi nakabayad dun sa old rates, yung old rates lang ang sisingilin at walang interest yon. Kasi napataw lang naman yung interest ng Universal Healthcare Act na. Kailan yun napasa? 2019. Diba? So, kung 2019, dun pa lang mag-uumpisa yung interest rates ninyo. Gayun pa man, siguro, kailangan i-rationalize natin yung increases. Kahit ako, wala akong problema, bayad tayo ng increase, na iintindihan ko po yan. Pero yung bibiglain mo ko na 1 year you're paying 2,400 and then the next year you're paying what, 40,000 or 30,000 or 20,000. Hindi yun madali tanggapin. Sabi ni Susie Fel, totoo po ba na wala na yung OEC para sa mga OFWs, lalo na kung hindi nakabayad ng Philhealth? Ang sinasabi kasi dun sa rules, hindi kayo i-issuean ng OEC kung hindi kayo fully paid dun sa Philhealth by the time you leave. May mga conflicting reports din po kasi dyan. Kasi meron mga nagsasabi na OWA na mismo yata or ginawang part ng batas o ng rule ng DOLE na wala ng OEC na kailangan. So, I think you really need to check before you leave kung ganun. Ha? Sabi ni Rogie Season, to be fair, there are employees in the Philippines working in private companies who have their own HMO but mandatorily contribute to Philhealth, which I think is no different from us OFWs. Siguro po, there should be a systematic way how to contribute instead po sa isang bagsakan lang pagbabayad ng premiums natin. Super agree. And tama kayo, Sir Rogie. Agree. Wala akong mabatikos dyan sa Heads Reyes, Colon. Question, how about dahil sa pandemic, maraming OFWs at dyan sa Pinas ang nawalan ng trabaho, walang income, dapat maraming suspension muna sa bayad. Wala po kayong bayad kung wala kayong income. I hope makita yan ng Congress kasi lahat naman affected ng pandemya. Yun nga yung dapat nililiwanag natin. Maliwanag kasi yung batas na mandatory contributor ka kung may income ka. So, kung wala kang income, dapat wala ring bayad. So, for OFWs who have not been earning an income in 1 year, dapat wala rin kayong bayad kasi hindi na kayo papatak under mandatory contributor. Diba? Kasi ang mandatory contributor of OFW at babase ito sa contract. Eh kung wala na nga ang contract, end contract na kayo, or naputol na yung contract ninyo, then what is to pay? Anong magiging basehan ng bayad? Wala po yan. I think that might be a misconception. Pero kung nangungolekta ang Philhealth, kahit wala kayong income, iyon ang mali. Sabi ni Rosette Boone, permanent resident kami ng SG, madalang kami umuwi at di kami nagpapa-hospital or check-up sa Pinas. Need pa ba magbayad? Yung anak ko nag-aral na dito, di na rin siya umuwi ng Pinas. Working siya dito, direct staff ng SG. Like I said, ang problema is if you're going to retire here. So pag uwi ninyo at mag-avail kayo ng PhilHealth dito, sisingilin po kayo. So that's how it works. In fact, kami dito, hindi naman kami umaalis. Di ako magbayad, let's say, lalo-lalo na ngayon, may interest na. Pag nagpa-hospital ako at pinasok ko yung PhilHealth ko, bayad. Bayad ka muna before you can avail of your PhilHealth. Eventually, you're going to have to pay it. Or pay for the hospital directly with your own money. It's still cheaper to have PhilHealth. Sabi ni Elaine Laurente, nagkaroon na nga ng universal PhilHealth, pinahirapan naman tayo sa pagbabayad ng PhilHealth. Hindi talaga, nakikita ko talaga yung problema dito, yung nabigla tayo. Totoo lang, kung di tayo nabigla, kahit tayo, yay, may universal healthcare, galing-galing ni Digong. Ngayon, sir naman, itong mga tao, minigla kami. Diba? Sabi ni Rene Brayco, wala ngang income pero may pension naman sa SSS, magbabayad pa din ba? Hindi po considered income ang pension. Binayad nyo na yan a long time ago. Hindi po yan income. Meron kayong, hindi na kayo mandatory contributor. Actually, kung retiree na kayo, at ang senior citizens, hindi na wala ng contributions. Ano na kayo? Covered na kayo ng PhilHealth. So don't worry about that. Tinanong ni Mike Antaran, tinuloy ba nila ang increase ng premium for OFWs? Nakasuspend po unless you want to be a voluntary contributor. So, kinokolekta nila yung voluntary na yun. Paano kung may sarili namang insurance? Kailangan pa ba mag-PhilHealth? Opo. Nasa Universal Healthcare Act po. Babayad pa rin kayo, Ma'am Sheila. Ay, Ma'am Sheila ba? Sir Sed. Last two questions. Isa-summarize muna natin, ha? Universal Healthcare and PhilHealth. Bakit nagkaroon tayo ng problema? Because of the increases, nabigla tayo. But what is universal? What is healthcare? What is insurance? First, because healthcare, here, when we're talking about PhilHealth, is a form of insurance. Ang insurance po ay naglilikom ng pondo galing sa mga contributors at pinapalaki siya. Okay? Ang purpose nito is, individually, mahihirapan tayo magbayad ng malalaking amounts for our own healthcare, for our hospitalization, if ever we need it, even consultations with doctors, lab fees, etc. Mahirap yan to be borne by an individual. So, ginagawa, maraming contributors magbibigay, tapos it's like saving for a rainy day. But, it's more than that. So, kunwari, over the course of your lifetime, you contribute 500,000 pesos. But you know that as you grow older, mas lumalaki yung needs mo for medical care and healthcare, 500,000 is not going to be enough. So what you do is, when this is given to an insurance company such as PhilHealth, they will invest that para lumaki ng lumaki yung tinatawag natin na common fund. At dahil hindi sabay-sabay yan ginagamit, then it is easy to make the payouts as each person is going to need it. In the meantime, the rest are kept within the fund at pinapalago at pinapalaki. So, yun ang dapat trabaho ng PhilHealth managers natin, ng tinatawag natin na fund managers. Now, para maging bahagi na but we also saw the need o naging bahagi ng ating public interest ang tinatawag na universal healthcare because as we know, healthcare or access to medical care is a right. It is in fact a very basic human right. It goes into the right to life. So, nilagyan natin ng universal healthcare. I say natin because the Congress is acting in representation of us. So, nagkaroon tayo ng Universal Healthcare Act so that, and now what we do is we also bear the burden of providing for those who cannot bear that burden by themselves or cannot bear that burden at all. At ito yung tinatawag natin na poorest of the poor o yung mga nasa 40s programs natin. There is no way they're going to be able to pay even the minimum contributions. So what happens is that we bear that burden because that is what we do in a socialized insurance. It means that those who are capable will also bear the burden of those who are not capable. But hindi magiging pantay yung ating coverage. Poorest of the poor is supposed to get a very basic coverage, and for those who are contributing will have a bigger package, much more details, much more inclusions. Yun, to make everything fair. Ngayon, what are the issues here? First, because of the Universal Healthcare Act, tumaas yung requirement ng contributions. Bakit may contributions? Well, that's part of what will constitute the fund. Pero hindi lang po contributions yung pondo natin, may sagot din ng gobyerno dyan, kinukuha dyan sa sin taxes. So, government fund, yearly. Our contributions, also yearly. Palaki ng fund, the bigger that fund, the more it is going to earn, the more coverage or the better coverage we're supposed to get. And the healthy people is good for everybody. Less time off from work because of ill health, less crime, we break the cycle of poverty. These are all good things na nahahatid sa atin because we take care of the poorest of the poor. We keep them from getting sick. We take care of their needs. That way, we can matutulungan natin sila na umasenso. At pag sila umaasenso, lahat tayo umaasenso. Lahat tayo nagbe-benefit din sa decreased crime rate because as we know, poverty is the biggest contributor dito sa ating crime rate. So, I think we all agree that universal healthcare or some kind of universal healthcare is good for us. We really need to take care of our countrymen and to take care of ourselves. Bakit? Matanda tayo. Pag tumanda tayo at hindi na tayo capable of answering for our own needs because we have insurance that's supposed to take care of us when we grow older. Okay, no problem with that. Now, there are issues na yung biglang taas ng healthcare natin, ng contributions natin, una, hindi tayo prepared, kulang yung information, ang gulo-gulo ng rules, hindi naman ganun kagulo. Pero, parang, wait, and then, the loss of trust in the institution brought about by scandal after scandal after scandal that have not shown to us anybody actually going to jail or being held accountable for that. So, because of all of these cases, nawawalan tayo ng tiwala and it becomes more and more difficult for us to pay our contributions and our premiums. Yun po yung nangyayari. Ngayon, hindi lang sa biglang tumaas yung ating contributions, now, kapag late ka, may pataw na po na penalty, and these penalties are computed at a certain percentage and then compounded yearly. So, mabigat yan. Okay. However, I think the benefits still outweigh the bad stuff, but the law needs to be amended. Halimbawa, itong contributions ng OFWs, the President has said, suspend and make it voluntary for OFWs. No problem with that. Ang problema, may batas that identifies OFWs as mandatory contributors. So the good news is, today, sabi ni Kong Mike, they're already going to start work on amending the law para ito po ay maging mas equitable, especially for OFWs. Ngayon, for OFWs who are going to retire here, you're still considered a mandatory contributor. Ang problema is there are other mandatory contributors, dual citizens, etc., based on the presumption that you're going to retire here and therefore benefit from it later on. Ano yung mga ibang issues that are valid? Unang-una, ang daming nagiging mandatory contributor kasi lahat ng may income ika ninyo. Eh di kung nanay, tatay, mga anak, lahat kayo kumikita, hindi na, wala na kayong dependents. Parang kulang, you're only paying for yourself. Okay, walang issue with that. So, yun yung mga kailangan i-clarify. The other problem that I see here, not just is sa kawalan ng impormasyon dito sa pagtaas at pag-increase ng rates. If you notice, kahit sa mga vloggers, ilan lang kami nag-usap tungkol, nag-e-explain tungkol dito sa mga contributions. Diba? Even the government agencies have not been very good at explaining ano ba yung covered dito, ano yung hindi covered. Kahit ang Philhealth po, ang kanilang information campaign ay kulang na kulang po. At minsan, siguro dala na rin ng paulit-ulit silang sumasagot ng tanong na nakikita natin na umiikli din yung pasensya nila sa atin. Pues, dusa sila, trabaho nila yan. Sabi ni Mary Rochelle Rojas, what if mamatay ka at hindi mo nagamit ang Philhealth mo? Madam, ang tawag po dito ay insurance. You are paying for coverage. Kasi, kunwari, I am covered for the year 2020. That means that I have that peace of mind for 2020 even if I don't take advantage of it. Even if I don't get sick, even if I don't get to bring myself to the hospital. Coverage is what you're paying, not service in advance. Well, potential service. So, yung coverage ko for this year, bayad yan. Okay? And that's what you're paying for. Coverage. There is a big difference between, kaya yung sinasabi ng karamihan is that di ko naman nagamit yan, bayad ako ng bayad, di ko naman nagamit. Madam, hindi po tama yon. Kasi ang binayad nga natin, yung potential, the coverage that you are entitled to for that year. Okay? So that's how insurance works. Halimbawa, life insurance. O bayad ako ng life insurance ko, pero hindi pa ako namamatay. Sasabihin mo ba na sayang yun? Hindi, kasi gagamitin mo yan. Eventually, gagamitin ng mga heirs mo yan. When you do die, and that's when you die, because there's no such thing as if you die. We're all going to die. Diba? So, accident insurance. Sometimes you buy accident insurance for a certain period of time. Let's say 3 years. You don't have an accident within 3 years. You don't get a refund because what you're paying for is the coverage of those 3 years. Okay? Medyo kulang talaga yung understanding din ng ibang tao of what constitutes insurance. So, yun ang magiging contribution namin. Sisikapin namin na i-explain din itong mga konsepto na ito. Pero what it all comes down to in the end, nabigla tayong lahat, biglang tumaas yung mga contributions, and please naman, don't say no OFWs lang, because the self-employed, hindi po suspended para sa amin yung aming mga mandatory contributions. So, the other issues are, of course, corruption. Let's say itong COVID, marami daw nagke-claim na COVID, para mas malaki yung payout sa ospital. Pero hindi naman pala talaga COVID, i-declare na lang. So, these are fraud, cases of fraud. So, yung mga ganyan, these are what we call leaks to the fund. Yung leaks na to, they have to be plugged because the more leaks there are, the less coverage we're going to get. The less services we're going to get, especially for those of us who pay year after year after year. And then para dun sa mga na-delay pa, penalty after penalty after penalty. Okay? So, the good news is, the law is scheduled to be amended. How it's going to be amended, that remains to be seen. Kasi so far, si Kong Mike pa lang ang nagsasabi. In fact, yung iniintay ko sa Senado is i-address nila itong yung biglaang pagtaas. Wala akong naririnig. Gigil na gigil sila makahanap ng wrongdoer. Pero nakakalimutan nila na the reason we want you to investigate this is so that you can rationalize the payments that we're making. Yeah. At saka yung doble-dobling beneficiaries that has to be addressed. Itong mga issues, pati yung information about interest payments. Bakit parang pakunti lang ang nag-e-explain nito? Bakit hindi yung government agencies nag-e-explain? Wag na natin tanungin yung ibang mga information agencies. Philhealth na lang. Nasa na yung mga explanations ninyo? Wag nyo namang kaming tipirin sa inyong mga pagpapaliwanag. Karapatan po namin yan. Sabi ni Wu Shang, last comment, totoo lang, maganda sanang Philhealth kasi makakatulong naman siya in case na ma-hospital ka or any of your beneficiaries, kaso talaga mawala yung mga taong magnanakaw. Di talaga mawala yung taong magnanakaw dahil minamahal ng pera. Mga taong walang konsensya, gusto yumaman kahit magnakaw na hindi naman kanila. And I think that is a good summary of our loss of trust in the institutions. So yun ang kailangan gawin ng gobyerno ngayon, and that's not something that we can really help with except by explaining the concepts and by spreading the information about this. Government officials should help us regain our trust in Philhealth and in the application of the Universal Healthcare Act. Not to worry, sabi daw ni Spox Roque, dadalhin niya to the attention of President Duterte at mag-uusap daw sila at saka ni General Morales. And hopefully, Secretary Duque, if he knows anything about this, then maayos-ayos at least kahit paano yung mga issues of corruption. But in the end, the amendments of the law rests solely with the legislature. Only Congress and the Senate working to amend the law is going to give us some relief, because right now the problem is the law itself. The main problem with our contributions is the law itself. Maraming salamat sa pagsubaybay uli sa Luminous. Napahaba yata yung discussion natin ngayong araw na ito. Don't forget to like and share. And don't forget to follow dito sa Luminous. Tomorrow may karambola po tayo at saka tambayan. And I hope to see you there. Don't forget like, share. Thank you very much. Sumala.